It's Jimmy.
And Pauline.
And welcome to the Families on the Horizon podcast. And basically, if you are joining us for the first time, this podcast is just to help average run-of-the-mill families like us and like yourself have not-so-average run-of-the-mill adventures. And today we're going to discuss an essential topic if you want to travel full-time, as a family especially, and that is financial preparation. But before we go into the meat of that topic, Pauline, how's your week been?
It's been pretty good, actually. It's actually been quite relaxing being here. We've spent the week not doing too much, and it's been nice, actually.
Yeah.
Instead of running around like crazy people trying to see all of the stuff, we've kind of just picked the stuff that we wanted to do and rested a little bit.
Yeah. That's the thing with traveling full time like this is that you get this. There's a big myth out there that you got to try and smash as much as you can in a day.
Got to have something on every single day, and it's just not achievable.
No. So we sort of aim to do, a thing every second, like an adventure or an experience every second or third day, and then the other days we just treat as normal days like we would at home. What we found with Kuching is because there's a little bit less to do, which is Kuching is where we are at the moment, which is in Sarawak, which is in Malaysia. There's a little bit less to do. So we've found that we've been recharging our batteries, so to speak. So we've been spending a fair bit more time in the Airbnb, and then we've just been going out. Like tomorrow, for instance, we're going to the Sarawak Cultural Village, which is super exciting. Thanks to the Sarawak Tourism Board for hosting us with that. So we get to experience that because it's quite an expensive thing to do.
Tomorrow we'll actually be out all day, and then we've got also something on at night time. So it's
big day tomorrow.
Yeah, it's probably best that we didn't do a whole lot, because a whole day and night can be pretty exhausting, especially in this heat and humidity, and it's been raining as well. So, the humidity is huge at the moment.
Plus we're oldies. We can't just go day in, day out doing stuff. We've learned that early in the piece that's just not the way we enjoy
We've
traveling.
also found the kids don't cope well with it either. Like, they then have trouble sleeping, and they then don't want to do anything the next day. So if you've booked back-to-back activities, we found that all of a sudden angry, grumpy, hungry kids come into play, and then they don't have any fun either.
And that's a topic for another whole podcast, and I think we're going to have to do one on that. So some of the other things, what else? We've been to the brand deal. That was pretty exciting.
Brand deal, yeah.
So we got our first major brand deal, I would call it, with the Sarawak Tourism, not Sarawak, Sabah, Borneo Eco Tours, which is a tourism company, a big one based out of Sabah, which is the neighbouring state in Malaysia. Massive brand deal. Super excited to talk to you guys about that. I'm not going to mention too much about it right now.
We have to be a bit tight-lipped about that one, because you have to see what's coming.
To see what's coming, but it's a once in a lifetime. Well, it's two once in a lifetime experiences, and we're very lucky to have that opportunity. So super excited about that. There'll be videos coming out, but it's going to be amazing. And then we've just been eating too much food.
A lot of food, actually.
Yeah.
We found a new place on Carpenter Street, which
it's like the main street.
We really thought there wasn't a whole lot there. We'd walked down it a few times, and then we got told about this one place, and we have now been back to that one place like 4 times because it's really good. So we've been spending most of our time on Carpenter Street enjoying all sorts of new dishes that we never knew was in Malaysia either. So we've had quite a lot of fun eating lots of food.
It's been really good. And we put on a couple of kilos. There's no gym, but
there's no gyms.
When we get to Sabah, we've got a gym, so we're going to go back into it, hit it pretty hard. So, all right, let's just get into it. So the thing with traveling full-time as a family is that one of the most challenging things, it's one of the most challenging things and one of the most rewarding things you can do simultaneously. The amount of stress that we've gotten since we've been on this trip has been evened out by the life-changing experiences we've had.
Yes.
But the financial aspect of traveling full-time can be quite daunting. I know it was daunting for us, and I'm sure if you're thinking of going on a trip, it's probably the thing that's stressing you out the most, outside of maybe teaching, world schooling your children and things like that. So today we're going to discuss some factors that are crucial, that you need to consider and that are crucial before taking the plunge and traveling. These are the things that you kind of need to do, that we found that you kind of need to do
before you've made that plan, you want to go, you need to know how long until you're going and how you can make that money or budget to get to that trip.
Yeah, the financial preparation is a big part of traveling and traveling for an extended period that you don't generally have to consider if you're only going away for a couple of weeks. But if you're away for a year, away for 6 months, away for 3 months, you've got to think of how the money's going to work.
Yeah.
And the first thing I think is worth talking about today is budgeting.
Yeah.
Now, this is not my area of expertise. Pauline does the budgets in this house. But let's talk a little bit about how to set realistic budgets and how to work out what budget you would need for a trip like this, say, for instance.
Okay. So probably first things first is you obviously need to know where you're going. So we knew that we were going to Southeast Asia. We knew that we probably didn't have the budget for hotels, so it would have to be an Airbnb or an apartment style situation. So I actually then started looking at mainly just the hot spots, like the big spots that we would be going to, just to get a gauge of how much it's going to cost us per night. And roughly it came to a figure of about $50. So I went off of $50 as a budget for our accommodation.
And how did you find that number?
So it was pretty much searching so let's say we were going to KL.
Yep.
Kuala Lumpur. And we're a family of 4, so we'd need at least a 2-bedroom apartment. It didn't really matter too much where it was at that stage because I wasn't worrying too much into the nitty-gritties of logistics and stuff. But I would see the range of a per night apartment anywhere from basic to glamorous kind of thing. So you've got to find the range. So it would range anywhere from, let's say, $40 to $70 or $80. But we kind of had to go, right, well, we only need a basic 2-bedroom. And that's how it was pretty much $50. In KL, it was $50. Where else did I check? I knew we were going across to the Philippines, so I checked Cebu area, which theirs was a little bit more expensive, but you could get something for around the $50 mark. And then I think I checked another spot or another 2 spots, and everything seemed to point to about $50. Whether it was cheaper, whether it was a little bit more expensive, it was going to wash out at being around $50. Now that's us because we're only a family of 4. So my best advice is to look at the places that you're going to, like the main places. You don't have to look at every city. Just give yourself a rough estimate of whether it's a hotel, an Airbnb, a long-term rental, whatever it's going to be. Give yourself a rough guide of what you want, where you're going, and it will give you an average price. So our average price turned out to be $50. So that's how we came down to accommodation. And
you also need to be realistic about the type of accommodation that you want to stay in.
Yes.
You don't want to... The thing with financial preparation for a trip like this is that you don't want to go into it pretending like you're not going to... pretending you're something you're not.
Yes.
So if you like a little bit more creature comforts and... maybe a pool, you like a spa or gym or something like that. You need to be honest and realistic about that and go, okay, well, our budget's going to be $60 a day or $70 a day.
It's going to be $80. It's going to be $100. Whatever it's going to be, you've got to be realistic in what you want. Really, for us, our items that we go for has to be 2 bedrooms. Majority of the time, we try and get the second room to have 2 single beds because obviously it's hard putting 2 kids to sleep in a queen size bed or a double size bed because they crash into each other. So we really do.
But beggars can't be choosers.
The beggars can't be choosers.
The boys have slept in queen beds.
They have.
We've slept in double beds. Sometimes you just got to make do.
You do. So we went for a 2-bedroom. Hopefully the second bedroom had 2 singles, but it didn't really matter too much. It had to be a walking distance to a shopping centre because we knew that obviously if you buy your groceries for maybe breakfast and lunch, it would be cheaper. So walking to the grocery store is optimal for us. It's cheaper. You don't have to get transport there. And then something that either had a gym in it or had a gym near it. They were our main main factors for accommodation. So you need to decide on what the factors are that you want for your family, and that you know that will be sustainable. Like we've stayed in some places that were good, but not great.
No.
Like But we just had to deal with it at the time because it was a short stay or we couldn't get accommodation, that kind of
Trying
stuff.
to stay in budget.
Trying to stay within the budget. Some places,
The secret to a budget is that you got to try and stay to it.
You got to stick to it.
There's no use making a budget before you leave on a trip, and then just throwing it out the window. And we're going to talk a little bit about that at the end.
Yes.
So accommodation, you know, you find something that suits your family and how you want to travel.
Yeah.
Get an average ballpark.
Average ballpark figure, yeah.
And ours was $50 Australian for context. So that might be a great starting point if you're a family of 4. That's a pretty good starting point for accommodation in Southeast Asia, that is. Yes. So this also applies for people that are traveling just around Australia or traveling around America, wherever you are.
Yeah.
The best way to find out, like Pauline said, the best way to find out how much things cost is just pick the big high ticket places that you want to go, like Kuala Lumpur or Las Vegas or Sydney. Look at what the cost of accommodation and start to average it out across your whole trip.
Yeah.
So budget. The reason we spoke about accommodation first is because it's generally the most.
It is the
your biggest cost.
It's the biggest cost that we have because every night you need accommodation. Every day you might not eat lunch, but you have to have a bed to sleep in. So you've always got to pay for accommodation, and it's got to be within your budget because that is going to be the biggest expense that you will have.
So let's talk about the second biggest cost, which is food. Food.
Especially for us, is food.
Yes.
So I kind of rolled food and miscellaneous items all into one. Because obviously you've got food, groceries, snacks, like food when you're out, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of went with like $20 to $25 per person per day.
Yeah. And how did you get to that number?
Well, I didn't do a huge amount of research on it, but I thought, right, if we're having 3 meals out a day, and we're in Asia, so I was like, right, it shouldn't be too much more than $5 Australian per person. Like per person, that's quite a lot. I gave each person like quite a big budget, so it's $5 per person per meal per day. So you're looking at, trying to do mental maths in my head. I'd given
$60 a day.
Yeah, I'd given everyone $5. Yeah. So then I gave it a little bit extra for miscellaneous and groceries, and you just never knew if we could get a cheap meal and that kind of stuff. So I kind of went, right, if I give everyone $25 a day, that gives us $100 per day.
Yep.
But obviously, that was then our budget for the whole day, including like sightseeing and things like that.
Yep.
So I kind of then had to think about it a little bit and be like, right, well, our sightseeing has to fit into that, or we really then have to make sure that breakfast is eaten at home, because obviously breakfast and lunch are a lot cheaper. So if you can pack your lunch and take it with you.
Let's give some context of how we came about this. So for the first month of this trip, so like every family that travels, I believe, has like a thing they have an affinity to. So some people it's like experiences. Some people they want nice accommodation.
Yeah.
For me, it was food. It's like we come to Asia where food is so good. I didn't really want to skimp on food that much. Now that did come and bite us at the start because for the first month of the trip we're in Kuala Lumpur and we were eating breakfast, lunch and dinner out. Which got very expensive.
It did. I looked at the budget and I was like, well, we can't afford to keep going.
It really blew the budget out. And this is where budgets are super important because you don't realise where you're going to blow out expenses until you have something to compare it against. So, when you were saying $100 a day, okay, we got $100 a day. We can spend all of that on food. What are we going to do experience-wise?
There's nothing else to fit in that budget if you spent it all on food.
So our solution was to eat breakfast and now lunch most of the time at home and then only have dinner out.
Yes.
That way we are only spending like $30 a day on food. Which leaves $70 a day for experiences. And that's sort of how we came to it because the food sneaks up on you quick.
It does.
It's deceiving because it's cheap.
Yeah.
But because it's cheap, you tend to eat more.
Eat more.
That's what we're finding. In Australia, we ate less because it was so expensive to eat.
So one example of like when we
just quickly, and we don't drink alcohol either.
No,
so
that wasn't in the budget.
That's not in our budget at all. So if you're a fellow and you like a bit of alcohol,
you've got to add that.
Add that to the budget because it adds up quick.
It does add up quick. Back to the food and like sightseeing. So if you want to see sights, obviously if you're going to be out, you're going to have to spend money while you're out. So there was one time we went to Escape in Penang, and it was already an expensive day. Like the tickets were, we were looking at $150. Yes. So that was already quite a lot of budget. It was over that was sightseeing for 2 days because it was just so expensive. So that was our sightseeing things for 2 days. But then also we knew we were having to buy food there because we couldn't take food in with us. So we made sure we ate in the morning our breakfast, which is toast or cereal or whatever. We said to the kids, like, you need to eat more than what you would normally eat because it's going to be expensive and you're going to be hungry and there's no snacks, etc. So we had breakfast. We bought lunch at Escape, and that was another quite a big expense. It was nearly $30 just to eat at Escape. So that's now eaten nearly into 2 days worth of budget.
Yep.
So a few days before we went to the grocery store and bought noodles, frozen veggies, and a packet of really cheap sausages, like frozen sausages. They always sell like chicken sausages in the freezer, which would have come to like $5 or something. So I knew that by the time we got back on the bus from Escape, we could just throw everything in the pan and have a meal at home. That was going to be a cheap option.
Yep. Yeah. And that makes a big difference. What we've learned since traveling like this and traveling for an extended period is that there's no shame in just having the odd random meal every now and again just to keep it in budget.
Yeah.
So we can't stress this enough. The only way you can afford to do this, unless you have an infinite amount of money, is to make sure that you try and at least attempt to stick to a budget.
Yeah.
Because you can get into this trap where you've got a whole bunch of money saved up for a trip like this, and then all of a sudden you've got a whole bunch of money saved up. So you're like, oh yeah, we can go do this and spend this money and whatever, we'll buy this.
And you spend it within 3 months and you're like, we can't afford to do the rest of the trip. We can't go for 6 months or 12 months because we've just spent all our money.
We met a couple that exact thing happened to them. They had come out for an extended vacation, full-time travel, ran out of money, had to go home.
Had to go back.
So you need to really appreciate how important budget is. Yeah. So we've spoken about food, we've spoken about accommodation.
Yeah.
Let's quickly touch on experiences because that's another big part of the budget. Is if you come and travel, you want to have experiences. So I can speak a little bit to this. You can touch on it a little bit more. We found it's hard to budget for experiences.
Very hard.
Because you don't really know what things cost until they get here. But what we found is that we're just using our common sense when it comes to experiences.
Yeah.
If we feel like it's too expensive, we don't do it.
Yeah.
And then what also we found, because we're not doing experiences all the time, the 2 or 3 days that we're staying in the Airbnb working, it kind of washes out.
It does, because we'd roughly only be spending like $20 to $30 Australian per day if we just stayed in and ate our 2 meals at home and then went out for dinner. It would probably be around $20 to $30 a day. So you're then saving that $70 to $80. So if you want to go then to the theme park and that's the only thing you're doing for the week, or you might be doing a theme park and maybe a walking tour or something you can do without spending money, well, that's where your budgeting comes in, because you've just spent 3 days at home or 3 days just doing some bits and pieces around that doesn't cost you anything. There's your budget for your theme park.
Yeah. And we like I said, we like to travel quite slow. We're not in any rush. Generally, we'll spend 2 weeks to a month in a place.
Yes.
What we tend to do is book the really big ticket stuff, maybe once a fortnight, once a week sort of thing. So like Sunway Lagoon, for instance, was very expensive. Admittedly, we got free tickets for that. But it was like $300 for a whole family. Yeah. We won't do like 3 of them in a week.
No.
We'll do one week and then maybe wait a week or two and then do it next time. And then we'll just do little bits and pieces in between then. So we might...
your museums, your walking tours. There might be a tower that you can go up for quite cheap. Like the Civic Centre here is only like $1 each to go up the tower. You know, just those kinds of things. The Sarawak Museum.
So if you plan around like one marquee thing, and then just like as like a big spaceship, and then you got little spaceships around it, which are all the $5 and $10 for entry stuff.
Yeah.
That's a good way of like spreading the budget out, because you can get a bit of shell shock when you go to like 3 amusement parks in a week, and all of a sudden you spent $1,000 as a family and go, oh wow, we can't afford to do anything now.
Yeah, we can't afford for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, and then the next 4 weeks you're literally doing nothing.
Yeah, literally you have to find all those walking tours and museums to go to because there's no budget.
Because then it gives the kids something to look forward to as well. You know, they don't want to really go on a walking tour. We do.
We like it.
And we drag them along, but
like it because we know it's free.
Yeah, it's free, and we appreciate how much it costs to come here and the value of being on this trip and stuff. The kids don't. So, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you spread your big amusements and big ticket stuff, the real fancy stuff, in spurts, then the kids have something to look forward to. You can work around that. And we found that's a really good way to do it.
But obviously, we're talking about long-term travel also. We're not talking about the 2-week holiday where you want to get everything in those 2 weeks. Obviously, you're going to budget for that in a completely different way. We are traveling for an extended period of up to 12 months. So you're looking at, we need that budget to cover us for that amount of time. If you're doing a 2-week trip, you're obviously going to budget a whole lot differently.
100%. So obviously there's other miscellaneous things in there like toiletries and bits and pieces.
Oh yeah, there's all, things have popped up that we have to go to the chemist, or the kids need a haircut, or someone, there's all sorts of expenses I have in my list that have just popped up, but
it's not really worth worrying about those.
They're not major.
No.
They're not a major thing. They'd only be like $5 to $10 to $20.
Yeah, and they're hard to account for.
If that.
If you budget for the big 3, which is accommodation, food, and attractions, the rest of it kind of all falls around it. As long as you're not doing anything crazy. Like I said, if you like alcohol, you might have to add a 4th category, which is alcohol going out. Yeah. We don't drink, so that's not an issue for us.
Yeah.
So
we probably haven't touched on transport either.
Transport. That is a really good point. Transport is a big cost when you're traveling, depending on how you travel. For us, it's not as big a cost because we're not moving as much.
No.
But if you're staying in a place, if you're moving on, so there's a thing called slow travel and fast travel. If you're doing fast travel, which is like trying to see as much as you can in that year, then it can get quite expensive.
Buses, trains,
airplanes,
ferries, whatever it comes to, they're all going to have a price attached to them. Whereas we're quite lucky that when we travel to the next place, most of them haven't been too far away, so it's either been a bus, a train. We've had a couple of flights, but we found really, really cheap ones. So also transport, another tip, is when you're searching for flights, travel on the cheap days. You will see we'll do a whole nother thing on this, but there's all these apps that you can go into and it will show you the cheap days. So whether you have to extend your accommodation by 1 to 2 days and it's $50 a night, but you're then saving $300 on flights, you're going to do that over taking that $300 flight. It's a
really good point, and I'm kind of glad you brought it up. People don't account for the travel part of their traveling long term. We've spoken to a lot of full-time travel families, and that's the bit that stings you.
Yeah.
It's not like backpacking where there's 2 of you can just throw on, check in, carry on and whatever. It's very expensive to move a family.
Yes.
So you need to account for that when you're traveling. If you have these big grandeur plans of like going to 50 countries in a year, or seeing every city in a country,
that comes down to a whole different budget.
You have to budget completely
because
different.
that would be a whole transport budget just in itself, to say like, right, we've got to take 10 flights. Those 10 flights are going to cost us anywhere from X to Y. That's the budget that we need to set aside just for transport.
Because that's a non-negotiable. You can eat a little bit less, you can see less attractions, but you need to be able to move if you're going to do that. So that's like a hard budget. You would separate that money from the rest of the money.
Yeah. Whereas we didn't really need to do that because we knew that we'd either be taking short flights or trains or buses that weren't actually going to take it. It cost us too much. So like we're saying with the attractions, we would do one big attraction. We move every 2 to 4 weeks. And normally the 2-week ones we're only moving to like
short trips.
The next area. Whereas maybe 4, 6, 8 weeks we might be taking a flight. We would then book those flights quite early, and some flights we were getting for like $10 a person. So that $40,
Yeah.
that's part of one day's budget. That's a day that we would then be at home.
Yeah. And you got to be flexible with that too. Like your big, for us, a big expense is attractions because we want to invest in experiences.
Yeah.
This brand deal pops up. Okay, well, we have to sort of adjust the trip a little bit to account for this brand deal because we don't want to miss out. So you don't want to be too rigid with that stuff. Most travel families will book when they land at a place. They'll start to think about where they're going to go next.
Yes.
But if you're traveling more regularly, you might have to plan a little bit further in
Yeah, you
advance.
need to be planning further ahead because flights can get expensive.
Yeah. So let's talk about the next thing we had here, which is getting out of debt.
Before you leave.
Before you leave.
Yep.
This is a big one because you think about it, right? Like if you had been planning this trip a year ago, if you're watching this, we recorded this in April of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
Interest rates in Australia are now 6% on a home. If you had planned this trip a year and a bit ago, based off what a home loan would be,
like 3%,
2%, 2.5%.
Yeah, no.
Effectively, your debt has doubled in cost.
Yes.
We just found that if you start early and you focus on getting out of debt, it makes the traveling a lot less stressful.
Yes.
So we have no debt. We sold everything we had.
Yeah.
So we have no debt coming into this trip, which allows a lot more flexibility because we know that even if we kind of run out of money, we're still going to be all right.
Correct. We've got one credit card, and the credit card has like Airbnbs and flights put on it because obviously we have points on that credit card, so it's easier to book that. But that's the only debt that we have that then obviously gets paid off when we paid off kind of thing.
So getting out of debt, that's common practice, but it would be very difficult to travel on a trip like this if you had personal debt. Home loan may be different because you can rent out your home and stuff, but I'm talking about like a car loan and things like that.
Personal loans, credit cards, anything that is small and annoying.
Because the other thing too is the logistics, if something goes wrong of paying that stuff off, is really hard when you're traveling. Like
we've already had how many issues with our credit card and our banks that we've had to call up from overseas. So it's not worth having to have that phone call while overseas to a bank when the reception's terrible, they don't understand you, and you can't walk into a branch to fix it. So you're better off fixing it before you go so you don't have to be stressing while you're here about that issue.
Yeah, and I think it's just good practice. Like if you can stick to you think about it, right? Like if you're in debt at the moment and you've put that money aside to pay the debt because you're leaving in a year, say for instance, you get on the trip, you've got that money. It's ready to go. It's like your budget for the trip. So I think it's just good practice. The other thing is like having the flexibility of movement and stuff like that. If our financial situation changes in any way right now, it's not going to have a big flow-on effect after we finish traveling.
Yes.
Because we've kind of like the Lorax, he's like kind of floated in, and then we've kind of floated out of society into this travel. But because we have no like obligations at home, we can just kind of float back in, even if we have less money. Whereas if you've got debt, you're kind of anchored to the place you're at. You always have to come back for some reason. So just a solid advice, just to get out of debt because it does make traveling a whole bunch easier. And that leads on to the next thing, which is savings. I don't know. Obviously, there's families that are traveling around right now that are doing it with no savings, and more power to you guys. I don't know if we would have come on this trip if we didn't have substantial savings.
It leaves that unknown in the back of your head to either not know how long you're going for, or not know where you're going to be able to go because we've been talking about budgets and transport and stuff like that. So if you have to move on to the next place and you don't have that money, what do you do? What do you do? There's too many unknown factors. So I get very stressed when we haven't got at least 1 to 2 weeks worth of accommodation already booked, or a flight to the next place booked with then accommodation. Like that to me stresses me out because then I know that I'm going to have to pay more than what I should have for accommodation on the other end because I haven't been organised enough to do it. So if I then didn't have the money behind that as well, that adds a whole another layer of stress on top of travel. which travel is stressful enough as it is.
That is, we've said that several times now, but like, it's not all roses. Traveling full time as a family is not all roses. I think the benefits outweigh the stress.
It does.
But it is stressful. We've had plenty of stressful situations pop up in the last 3-4 months.
Yeah.
And that have directly been caught, that we directly wouldn't have had if we're at home more comfortable.
Yes.
You don't want to go and then add financial stress on top of that.
Yeah, not having any money for a bus ticket or something, or the next lot of accommodation. Like, what do you do?
Or some kind of payment that you were supposed to get from like a rental property or something just falls through.
And someone doesn't pay the rent, like...
Yeah, and then you're supposed to pay for $1,000 flight and you don't have the cash to do it.
Yeah, nope.
It just adds a layer of complexity to traveling when it's really quite a complex thing as it is.
You don't need that. So have your savings, have your budget, and you'll be a whole lot better off.
Yeah. And think about it like this. This would be the single best way to do it if you could afford to do it. And I know not everyone can. So we budgeted $150 a day. That's what our budget, including flights, including everything.
Yes, we have to fit within that $150 a day. So that gives you $150 a day, $1,050 a week, $4,200 a month.
Yeah.
Right?
Which sounds like a lot, but when you count flights and stuff, it's
not.
Yeah. So if you could potentially put away like $150 a day savings, not everyone's going to be able to do that, of course, but even just a portion of that, then you know that you're going to be able to do the things you need to be able to do when you're traveling. It gets you into that mindset.
Yeah.
I would recommend, if I was traveling and if, let's say, I was going for a year, I would recommend having at least a quarter of savings of that. So if like it's costing
that budget,
so if it's costing you $50,000 to travel for the year, by budgeted for $50,000 a year, have $15,000 or $20,000 saved up, because you can go like a month or two with things going wrong. Generally, you can get things, the course, righted. If you have to earn money, it takes a month or two to get logistically in place to start earning that money again. So I would recommend having that kind of amount. More the better.
Oh, of course.
More the better.
If it was me, I'd be leaving with the whole amount, but obviously that is definitely not achievable.
Yeah, not everyone could do that.
In many, many situations. So you would say, okay, I would need, anywhere from a quarter to half of that. Let's try and aim for that. And then have a plan, which we're going to bring up soon, is have a plan to then make that money that you need per day while you're away.
Yeah, that should always be your goal of traveling, is to produce an income while you're abroad.
Yes.
So our goal of our trip is to not spend any of our savings over that 12-month period. So initially we might be spending some of the savings because flights and things like that.
Yeah.
But once it all washes out after a year, we want to have earned enough while we were traveling to pay for the trip, essentially, and top up that savings.
Yeah.
Because that's the next thing we want to talk about, is earning while abroad. It's a question we get asked a lot.
Yes.
So for context and for transparency, we have a business in Australia now. It's significantly smaller than 8 months ago, because we had to downsize it to be able to do this trip logistically without basically stressing ourselves to death.
Yes.
So it doesn't earn anywhere near as much as it used to.
No.
But we also made the decision about a month into this trip that we don't want to deal with clients anymore. We love the clients we have.
Yes.
We got a great client base.
Yes.
But we don't necessarily want to take on any more clients. So
unless it's something that we can really help them with.
Or we want to do.
Yeah, there comes down to these parameters of we're not cutting everyone away, but it needs to be able to fit within so they know we are away. We do have a staff member in the office if you need them, but you have to realise that they would be your point of call. We can do X, Y, and Z, but we cannot do this, this, and this.
Yeah. And I want to qualify this, because I feel like it's the hardest thing to get your head around. You hear of people making money online and digitally and things like that. Yeah. We this time 5 years ago, we didn't have a digital business.
No.
I was running an agricultural dealership branch of a case dealership. You were just working at a local council, Shire.
Yep.
We didn't have...
we had normal jobs.
We just had normal jobs. But we made the decision about 5 years ago that we wanted to do something like this.
Yeah.
So we re-skilled.
Yeah.
I'm a fitter by trade, a mechanical fitter by trade. I came out of the Navy and I'm a fitter. And then obviously I moved into a more white collar role within a business. But, you know, I knew very little about digital marketing as did you. I had an understanding of it.
Yeah.
But all of that had just been learnt off YouTube and stuff. Yeah. If you don't be afraid to put your neck out there and reskill and retool to make this a reality. So if you're a FIFO worker at the moment, of course you can't just earn the money that you're earning now while you're traveling.
Correct.
You know, earning $200,000 a year while you're traveling is like the very, very few people that are doing that. But don't be afraid to go, actually, I want to make this happen. For this to happen, I need to learn about digital marketing. I need to learn how to make money online.
And it can range from anything. There are so many. We could sit here for hours going into all of the...
I think we'll make a full podcast on ways to make money online.
Yes.
Because there's so many ways to do it. We've met people that are English teachers online.
Single mum who was an English teacher while she was away doing at most 15 hours a week, she said.
Virtual assistant work, copywriting, affiliate marketing.
Editing.
Social media and content creation, there's a big push into that. That's something we're focusing on because it's a skill that we want to get better at.
There's so many things. So if there's something that you really love or really want to learn about, go and learn about that and start seeing how you can make money online with that.
Yep.
There is multiple platforms out there if you want to teach something. Like if you have a skill and you want to teach someone else, there is platforms out there that you can be on that would be maybe an hour or two each night, an hour here, an hour there, and you're getting paid by the hour. So if that's an option, you know that FIFO worker that only knows maybe mechanical engineering or something, but has a very specific skill that can then teach that in a course of someone's.
Yep.
There you go. There's your online.
I think also one of the biggest misconceptions about making money online is that they feel like they have to replace their income with one source. There's
multiple.
Yeah, we have multiple sources of income, and they're all, besides the agency, which is a big income source. But a lot of the other income sources we have, like the affiliate blogs, this social media for Mitch is on the horizon that we have, the affiliate side. I do a bit of consulting and coaching. They're all like $500 a month, $300 a month, $1,000 a month. They're all like just small amounts, but they accumulate into a large amount. Now, the beauty about doing it that way, as opposed to trying to find something that's going to make you $20,000 a month in one hit, is that if one of those drops off, you still have income.
Yes.
You know, we have so many sources of income coming in, and we're only creating more and more as we're traveling, because one of the perks of traveling like this is you get more time to think about stuff. So
much more time.
Yeah, so I've got an idea for a course that I'm going to start building out. We've got some websites that we've
got. More blogs coming in, like more ideas.
So there's a lot of those little things coming in, and they're all like $200, $300, $500 a month, $1,000 a month. Yeah. Just adds up. So it's not necessarily about learning that one skill that's going to replace your job as a FIFO worker so you can do this. It's like learning a set of skills so that you can take advantage of opportunities as they arise. Yeah. And it might be $300 a month at the start. That's something when I speak to people about this, because that's probably the area I know the most about. When I speak to people about how to transition from a job to the digital space, they're like, oh, it doesn't make enough. It's like, no, this is like a multi-year thing. Yeah. And it only makes $100 a month, but if you had 10 of them, it's making $1,000 a month then. If you had 10 blogs, this blog's only making you $70 a month, but if you have 10 of them, it's making you $700 a month. And then if you add this on top, it's making another $100 a month. It's like accumulation of like several different income streams. And if you talk to most digital natives, people that have digital businesses, a lot of them will have multiple businesses because it's just so easy to make money online once you know how to do it. So my advice is like, think about this a year or two in advance. Like if maybe you're not in a position to go traveling right now, but you are just like, in the next next 4 years or 2 years, we want to go traveling as a family. Start thinking about the online income aspect and how to earn money while abroad, because worst case scenario is you don't go on the trip. Yeah. You decide you don't want to do it.
you push it back for a year, or you're not going at all, whatever, you've still got a skill.
You've still got the skill, you've still got the income streams.
Yeah.
And it just makes you less, it puts you in a better position to do something like this in the future. Because, to be quite honest, we probably wouldn't have come on this trip if we didn't have at least some income streams.
Yeah.
Admittedly, we've got a lot saved up, so we could have logistically done it financially.
We could have, but then we turned that back up home with nothing.
Yeah, we'd be like, oh, actually, we don't want to do it. But because we got some income rolling in, it's given us a little bit of padding. And not so much that, it's because we know how to make income. So we're actively making other income streams while we're out and doing this trip, which is really important. So the next thing we had on here was managing expenses as a family.
Yeah.
This is a big thing for us. All of us, including the kids to a lesser extent, know what our budget is, know what we can and can't spend money on, so that you don't have one person in the family going, oh, I want to go to Disneyland, and the other partner who's done the budgets go, we can't afford it.
We can't afford that.
Because the other person that wants to go to Disneyland has no context.
Yeah.
And they're just like, oh, we can afford it. We got heaps saved up.
Yeah, no problem.
And obviously we're on the same page with that, but also the kids are as well.
Yeah.
It's not only a great learning tool for math, teaching them how to budget, teaching them how the money works and the trip. We're just completely transparent with them. So when we take money out, we say, well, look, we can't afford this, or we can buy this, we can't buy this. And we explain why that is. And what we found, the positive side effect of that, is that they ask us for less stuff.
Yeah.
Because they know that we're not going to buy a little trinket because the boys want it, because it's not in our budget.
I think a good example is lately they've been asking for ice cream every single day. So ice cream after lunch or after dinner. They're like, can we have ice cream today? And we're like, no, because there's not enough money to have ice cream every day. Because when you add up ice cream every day, that eats into your budget, and that means that theme park or that attraction that you want to go to, you can't go because we've spent that on just eating ice cream.
Yeah.
So yes, we may be able to have ice cream once a week as a treat, or we'll buy something at the grocery store, which is obviously a lot cheaper, like a tub of yogurt or maybe an ice cream at that store, because it's a lot cheaper than buying single ice creams, but it's only though once a week or on a special treat or something like that. And they finally clicked in their head and gone, oh, I understand now, because mum and dad keep saying, if you want to go on this, you can't have that.
Yeah, which one's more important
Which one's more important? So they've finally figured that out.
Yeah. And it's taking, our kids aren't perfect.
No.
They still
ask. They'll ask all the time.
Yeah,
but
they'll still ask.
Finally, when we say it again, they're like, oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah.
They just start to learn that actually, I don't need that. Because when we said this last week in our podcast, the first month and a half of this trip, anything they seen that was
a small toy.
Yeah. Oh, can we have that?
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore because they go, well, actually, we I don't know, we're not in their brain, so we don't know why they're not asking us, but they're not asking us anymore.
That's true.
Probably because we've just said no so much.
We said no. And then we also say, where are you going to put it?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah.
And we give them a bit of money so that they can buy their own stuff every now and again. The boys bought some stuff with their own money when you went to the laundry.
Yeah, so I took them to the laundromat the other day with me because they said they wanted to earn some money. So I said, well, you've got to come and do the chores with me because the laundromat's 500 metres away and it takes at least an hour by the time you wash and dry the clothes. So I'm like, we're going to be out for an hour. So if you want to bring your wallet and you can buy something, there's a mini mart next door. So they both came with me. And it was actually really nice to see that they thought about what they wanted to buy because they were obviously hungry. And so one of them bought a packet of chips and the other one bought the drink, and then they shared.
That was amazing.
Both together. So I actually heard them in the shop go, if I buy this and you buy that, then we can share and we'll both have a snack and a drink. And I was like, oh my gosh, hallelujah, it's happened.
Yeah. So that's, that wouldn't have happened at home.
No.
Just the traveling gives you more opportunities to build these talking points around that stuff because you're just constantly...
You're immersed in it every day.
Yeah. We're constantly juggling with money and travel and the chores and things like that. So I think just focus on doing this as a family. You're going to be The one thing about traveling like this is that you're going to be spending a lot of time like this right next to each other together as a family 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So if you're not willing to participate in activities, good or bad activities, together as a family, then it's not going to be a fun trip.
Yeah.
Because you kind of have to.
Yeah.
And one of the best places to start is the trip is finances.
Yes.
Because all kids need to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And it's a great opportunity to teach them. It might just start at home when you're deciding you're going on this trip, and you start talking to the kids and going, well, we really want to go on this trip. There's these awesome things to do. We have to start to save money, so we're not going to buy this anymore.
Yeah. Because
would you rather go on a trip and see the world and go to this theme park, or have this right now?
Yeah. So either, an example, again, with ice cream, if your family buys ice cream every week as a treat at home in the grocery, you explain to your kids, look, if we want to go on this trip, we will not be buying this type of ice cream because this ice cream is $4 a week, and that will add up to X amount of dollars per month, per year, and that will give us the budget to go to whatever it is.
Yeah.
So they need that understanding, and they actually need the example to be shown to them, because I think everyone needs that. Everyone needs an example to actually let it sink in, and that's exactly what kids need. So a great example for us at the moment is I've got the expense app on my phone, and every time we spend something, I get the kids to now input it into the phone. So I'll give them the receipt, and they know they have to select the category of what it's going into, whether it's food or transport, sightseeing. They know the categories. They know to type in the amount and to type in what it is, whether it's dinner, lunch, the zoo, whatever we went to. They then type it in, and they'll actually see the total of what we've used for the day, and they'll be like,
oh, that's a lot of money.
Have we spent that already? And I was like, yes, because we've been here and you wanted this, and we went to lunch, and things just add up, and they're like, oh, okay. So actually giving them that realization and managing them to see the money has really helped us.
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily apply, doesn't just apply to traveling around Southeast Asia. This is any form of traveling for an extended period as a family. Yeah. Now, that's it. That's all we had here. So, guys, if you have any follow-up questions, or you have any ideas or you want us to talk about, if you have any burning questions, just leave it in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. Otherwise, just ping us an email, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Or on any of the socials channels. Like, we're always there on messages.
Because we also have a channel called Mitch's on the Horizon. That's where we're probably most active. That's our personal family blog. So just go on Mitch's Horizon. Hopefully you can find us wherever we are. Now, I just want to end on saying that the thing with traveling full-time as a family is that it really requires two things, in my opinion. And that is financial preparation and an actual deep sense of adventure, and an actual wanting to do this, not from a superficial level to say you've done it, but from a burning desire to do something different and actually travel and spend time together as a family. But yeah, one of those things we can't help you with. You either have that deep yearning. The other thing we can help you with is financial preparation. We think that the financial preparation side is just as important as that deep sense of adventure.
And look, you do not have to, we're not saying you have to go in depth into spreadsheets and formulas and all that kind of stuff, because we don't do that. Ours is very simple, because the simpler, the better. We can manage it every single day. You don't want to have to go too in depth. Go in depth to the point that you want to go, but make it easy to manage.
100%. And the more financially you are prepared for a trip, the more attainable this lifestyle is. Without the financial preparation, it's a very overwhelming and difficult thing to achieve. With the financial preparation and planning, it's a very attainable lifestyle and lifestyle choice, and it's enjoyable for everyone. So thank you for tuning into the podcast today, guys. I hope this episode was informative and helpful. And make sure to tune in. If you're on a podcast platform, make sure to leave us a review, and to make sure to follow the RSS feed. If you're on YouTube and you're watching this, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to subscribe to Mitch's on the Horizon as well. Like I said, we're just an average family that's having a not so average adventure.
Yes.
And we want you guys to join us. So, because it's one of the best things we've ever done. So
there's so many people out there that want to do it and message us all the time, and we just say, just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
These things will help it along the way, but
Yes.
sometimes you just got to jump in with both feet. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you all next week.